Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bandle Gunner Duos Cup presented by Runeterra Life. I'm really excited for the second event in this series. The duo tournaments have been a pleasure to cast and super fun for the community. And joining me to open up today's broadcast is LanUp. How are you doing, my friend?
Hello, I'm doing fine, buddy. I mean, this is the second time we have casted together.
It's been a long time coming.
It's been a long time, buddy. I've missed you, you beautiful man. But yeah, looking forward to today. Looking forward to the matches, and yeah, all good.
It's going to be fantastic. We had a small delay getting into the tournament broadcast, but the tournament is already underway. We wanted to make sure that the players themselves still stayed on schedule, still managed to get in there and start having fun immediately. So as we move through today's Swiss rounds, we're going to be jumping back and forth and here and there wherever we can find the gameplay, and we will be casting it for you beautiful people today.
Yep.
We are figuring out what our first match is. I think we've got a pretty spicy one already, but before we get into it, just a quick shout out to the tournament organizers, Optima at Runeterra Life, Metafy and GG Tour for really helping us out, put this together, and provide some supplementation for the sweet prize pool we have for the contestants today.
Indeed, yeah, no, it's a lovely prize pool. Like, it's such a nice thing to do. As I said before, Optima and Runeterra Life has organised another one of these duos before. It's such a lovely event to do, just because it allows people from all over the world to kind of get together and play together. Which obviously we lost when Crush Shard sadly lost the game. We were talking a little bit about that earlier on, but
Pour one out for Crush Shard.
Indeed, but it's looking good. So shall we get into this first match? Well,
Yeah.
What looks like it's coming to a conclusion.
That is too bad, because we jumped in, and what we had kind of sitting in our back pocket was a Shellfolk mirror. Now, Curious Shellfolk has been a bit of a terror on the ladder. You don't see it too much in tournaments. Whenever you do, it gets banned, but we already know that the Glorious Evolution is hit, the level up Ezreal is hit, the Shellfolk is hit. This is where the real game begins.
I mean, yeah, it's one of those things where I'm also just looking at the timer of both people being in minus time as well. So the pressure's on, and it's all about getting those moves out quick, which, let's face it, these aren't the quickest of decks sometimes.
And it's not that it has slow animations, that there's a lot to think about. You just have so much you can do for 0 mana, and it just keeps going. The Otterpuss attunes, so it just basically, once you have that discount from Shellfolk and Glorious Evolution, it plays itself for free, and you're actually just getting even more mana back. But we'll see. I mean, with Ezreal in play, Boky seems to be in a very dominant position here, still at 20 Nexus HP.
I mean, definitely, looking at that Nexus health and the fact that Ezreal is just continuously blasting, admittedly, as you say, Morpice has got a nice little thing going on with the Glorious Evolution, and some oh, is he gonna potentially hit a second Glorious Evolution? Oh no, fair enough, makes sense.
It looks like what Morpice is doing here with the leveled up Fizz, with the Daring Poro, another Daring Poro being created, thanks to the stolen iterative improvement, trying to go for the OTK here. This is something that deck is known for, not just the value of Shellfolk, but the augment on all of these elusive units. Ezreal can only block one, and ambush coming through on the Shellfolk. Wait a minute!
Ambush has been devastating. Ambush is devastating. All things to hit, everything's elusive. It's not looking good now. The OTK, as you say.
Morpice, we thought that they were behind, but in the mirror match, you're pranking and just basically drawing cards you want anyway.
I mean, hidden ambush there.
54 damage. What an excellent finale to that game to kick things off. And we aren't absolutely sure. I think that might have been game 1 or game 2, but the players, if we jump back in, then we know that that's not going to be game 3. I'm really excited to see more Shellfolk across the tournament. With the seasonal tournament right around the corner, the players are going to be having some fun, but they're also going to be testing the best of the best decks as well, trying to get that edge. And it looks like we do have another match available. Is this deep?
I mean, yes! This is deep! Oh, you gotta love when somebody brings deep. I miss deep.
It's one of those decks that sometimes the meta shifts in a certain way, and it's just a godlike deck. It was 2 or 3 seasonals ago, I believe, where it was a galaxy brain like idea to bring deep because the meta was so good for it, but nobody realized it until right before the seasonal. And now, you know, in this tournament with such a wide variety of decks, we're going to see if maybe the meta is a little bit good for it. We do get a glimpse of the atrocity in the deck. We don't know if there is just the one copy, but it's great that it's in the hand and it's not going to get tossed. Off to a great start with Dredger.
That is always the risk when you're running that, isn't it? I don't know about you personally, but I know running deep in the past, you sometimes run 2 or 3 atrocities, and I always toss all my atrocities and go, well, that plan's out.
And then your opponent sees the atrocity is tossed, and then they just like breathe a sigh of relief.
Yeah,
but
they start to relax.
Shellfolk versus Deep is going to be interesting, simply because once the Deep deck gets to that win condition and you have the 7/7 Devourer of the Depths, you can just eat the Shellfolk, and it's going to be so difficult to get that set up. And it could just come down to a Glorious Evolution elusive OTK again.
Yeah, and not only that, it's also the fact that if deep, it depends on how fast they get deep. Some deep decks can go really, like, unbelievably fast. If they can get there and then throw down Tree Man, get rid of your cards up to 4. Like, it puts the time pressure on what is potentially like sometimes like the Shellfolk deck is like a more like timey kind of deck, waiting to get to those value right at the very end. But if they force you into you've got no cards but 4, enjoy yourself. Can be interesting.
I know, this list, like, now that I'm kind of thinking about it a little bit more, I feel like you could really throw a wrench into the metagame, right? With a lot of mid-range and value-oriented decks, and it's like, okay, but if I just have a board of big things and hit you, what are you going to do about it? The biggest stumbling block of Deep has been aggro, and we'll see if, you know, with a format like this where players are bringing a variety of decks, maybe you try to ban out the more aggressive ones. But slowly but surely, we're getting to this Maokai.
We are indeed, so looking forward to it. There's the Jace coming down with challenge. One of those rare times you see him come down with challenge. So many people pick quick attack.
I think you want to be a bit more proactive with Jace. I like this decision here because with quick attack, you know, Morph is just going to take the 4 damage. When you're playing against a value-oriented deck like this that has a lot of direct damage potentially with Ezreal or an OTK, you know, the 4 or 6 damage that you take in the mid-game doesn't matter too much. So Baki's just going to pull the Deadbloom Wanderer to the front of combat here, it seems, and try to get some of this damage to stick alongside the Lecturing Yordle.
I guess it does basically stop you from throwing down Maokai that little bit soon, because he can just be challenged off. He is only a 1/4, so obviously there's so many other things in that deck that could potentially just straight up kill him, but it's that little bit more where it forces you not to throw him out.
And this is a very curious idea, right? You can't go for the Jaw Hunter because of the poison darts. So Morpice is just going to put out the Maokai here. It takes a couple points of damage. And Maokai is essentially jumping in front of the Nexus, right? To take the damage from these poison darts. And
basically, yeah.
Getting mushrooms in the deck is pretty tricky. The trick sometimes with decks that have access to a lot of mushrooms is you wait for them to get deep and then try to put a bunch in their deck all at once.
Yeah, I was going to say,
for this purpose.
you can toss the cards, can't you, that have mushrooms on them. So actually, if you get lucky, you end up tossing all the mushrooms out of your deck, so...
And wow, deep already, but Maokai is not yet flipped. These are 2 separate conditions. You have to toss or have a certain number of allies die. 18 out of 25. Does Baki have a mystic shot or something to get this Maokai off the board before it's too late?
Depending on how many cards are left, like I say, yeah, we've got like 15 cards left. I don't know how many, because like in Deep, it gets running so many different ways. How many Malkites are in Morpice's deck? Because I know that some people ended up like putting him in as a 1 or 2 of. I'm guessing, considering the fact they threw him out, I'm going to assume it's at least a 2 of, like, or 3 of. But people run Deep in so many different ways. That's him down.
The Aftershock comes through to take down Maokai. So this particular one will not get leveled up, but it's a matter of time before the next one is drawn.
But that's Sea Scarab, meaning that the little challenge sapling is already going to be tossing more cards as well, which is getting you closer and closer to Nautilus and another Maokai if there is a second one in the deck.
With Devourer of the Depths. No, excuse me, that's the Abyssal Eye. Haven't seen that one in a while. When it Nexus strikes, it will draw you another card. And Morpice is just saying, okay, now it's my time to try to find Nautilus, try to find Maokai. It's perfectly timed. You go deep, and then the next turn or so, you get that Nautilus, and you start drawing these heavily discounted sea monsters. And from this position, like, the prank isn't going to matter anymore. When your sea monsters are so discounted, the +2 or even a small nerf to their stat line still means they are threatening.
Indeed, and talking about threatening, you're always looking for, like, what cards can be given to you, like I know that it's only a 4/1, the challenge unit, but potentially if that gives you what is it, a Terror of the Tide, the one which reduces everything down on the other side by 3 attack and
yes,
gives monsters fearsome, one of those that can swap the game round as well.
That's one of my favorite ones to top deck, but oh no, a second atrocity. Is there anything in this deck that can stop an atrocity?
I mean, Mini-Morph is about the only thing that can, but it depends on how good the attack is beforehand, right? In terms of, like, if they can get you down to it, 3 is lethal anyway. Who knows?
This is so absurd to watch. Deep is one of those decks that everybody sleeps on and everybody thinks is bad until suddenly it's not.
That's what I mean. It's one of those decks, I said it recently, I just said, like, making sure just getting rid of the Shellfolk, but yeah, that's done. Forget about your core health. Let's get rid of that Shellfolk. But Deep is one of those decks whereby it's such a nice little thing in terms of you think, oh, Sea Monster's giant, it looks fantastic, it's a fantastic archetype. And then you put it in the drawer and you forget about it and say, I'm never going to forget you, as you close the drawer and never open it again. It happens to a lot of people.
But Trinket Trade is going to come through here. Baki's still looking for some answers, still looking for some value. Knows after seeing that atrocity, and now we know that there's 2 copies. Is feeling the heat here, feeling the pressure.
100%, and especially with Nautilus coming down next turn, Nautilus is a fearsome, so that means you like. I'm just trying to think what that deck, other than like Jace and Shellfolk, yeah, I'm just trying to think like what can block fearsome in that deck. Also, Devourer coming out here. This is the one you're talking about, the Obliterate.
Yeah, that's the next Shellfolk is down. Nautilus comes through. This is going to discount.
Yeah, but also because of the previous discount, which they used from that Rising Tides or whatever the card's called.
Lure of the Depths.
Lure of the Depths. They can now play Devourer if needed. So if they throw something down which cancels Shellfolk,
oh no,
Devourer! But obviously, Shellfolk is actually one of the better ones because all it takes is a Mystic Shot because it's the health.
So true.
All it takes is a Mystic Shock, and they can save this and be able to still block the But nope.
No, it goes through. That is GG.
Shadow boats all round.
So Morpice takes game 1 by stealing all of Baki's cards to enable their own Shellfolk OTK, and then comes down with Deep in game 2 and does what Deep does.